What's up guys, my name is Tom. Welcome back to my channel. Well, I had taken the Jeep to Safelite to get the windshield replaced, and about a week later I washed it and found a nice big scratch on the hood. So let me bring you guys in and show you what that looks like. So what I did here is I actually masked around it. There's no reason to be polishing across the whole hood. I really want to narrow it down to, you know, working on this scratch here and see how much we can kind of knock that down. So what we're gonna do today is we're actually gonna remove the scratch as much as possible because it's actually pretty deep. But we're gonna use the battery powered iBrid Nano, little polisher, little electric toothbrush. And we're gonna start off with a polish on a yellow pad so we can see how far that gets us. And then we'll go a little more aggressive. I got some little microfiber pads for this machine. And then after that, because again, it's not going to completely remove the scratch, and neither is this, but we actually have 2000 grit sandpaper on a little pad that works for this machine as well. So we'll wet sand it, and yeah, we'll see how far each one of those steps gets us. And then of course, after wet sanding, we're going to have to go backwards through that, and we're going to compound again, and then we'll polish again, and let's see if we can mitigate the scratch as much as possible. So let's get to it. I did measure the thickness of the paint here because if you guys had seen some of the other videos of me working on this hood, the paint is real thin on here. So we were in about the 2s, so I got a little bit to work with not much, so I'm not going to go too crazy on it with the wet sanding, but this drives me crazy. I had actually gone back to Safelite to see, you know, what they had to say about it. And, you know, of course they told me they'd compound it or have a body shop touch it up. But, honestly, I'm not gonna be handing my vehicle back to someone that did this. I mean, I could see an accident, but, I mean, it looks like they just, like, ran the windshield or something down the hood of this thing. It's a pretty nasty scratch, so... You know, I mean, it's a 200,000 mile vehicle that's 15 years old. So, you know, if it was a really nice car, I could see me having fought them and, you know, maybe had them spray or blend the hood or something like that, which isn't really ideal either. But, yeah, so let me bust out the polish and see if we can start knocking this thing down. One of the things a lot of times I have trouble with using this little machine is, it's really easy to put too much product on the pad. So usually what I do to start out is I just prime it up like normal, you know, spreading out the product on the pad. And then I don't actually put an extra dab on there. I'll run it first and then kind of see how that spreads out. So we'll start it on a low speed, which nice, this is adjustable. Start it on a low speed and make sure we're not slinging product everywhere. You can see with just the polish that it made a pretty good improvement already. So now all that's left, really, you can see those deep scratches. So now we're going to switch to the compound. And the purpose, what we're going to do is we're going to try and knock down the edges a little bit more and see if we can mitigate these scratches a little bit more with the compound. Make sure we get it centered on there pretty good. Especially with the microfiber pads, it's really important to try and prime it up and get some product on a, you know, on every fiber. So, and I also wanted to point out to you guys, I know I told you before I masked it off because there's no reason to be polishing the whole thing, and that's something to keep in mind anytime you're going to be polishing or working on the paint of a car, is you really only want to do as little as you possibly need to do, because the more you do, the more you're removing paint from the car, you know, and the less paint you're going to have to work with in the future. So I'm just focusing on this one tiny little area, and let's get this thing started. Now you can see a nice improvement there, and you can see the edges of the scratches look a bit more rounded. You know, and it's definitely starting to go away. I mean, it's definitely not going to go away completely, but we'll knock that down a little more with the wet sanding. So I forgot I actually need a little tool to switch between the compounding and polishing pads and the wet sanding. That comes off. Let's stick that on there. So when you're wet sanding, you want to make sure that not only do you soak the pad, but you want to soak down the panel as well. And as far as I'm concerned, there's really no such thing as too much water when you're doing this, so keep the bottle handy. I'm going to start this on a low speed. I just burned through I just burned through the paint, so I kind of had a feeling that was going to happen, but it is what it is. Oh, she was supposed to be watching me and keeping up on my quality control here, but you fell asleep on the job. You fell asleep on the job. Who's that sleepy girl? Oh yeah. So now you can see what it looks like after a little bit of wet sanding. I'm pretty sure I burned through the paint. We'll see what happens when I compound it out, but you know, you could still just barely make out the scratches there, you know, but a lot of those other vertical scratches are almost gone. So now I'm going to go back to the 105 on the microfiber pad and see if I can't get some of these wet sanding scratches out. Gotta put my finger in here now so it'll actually focus. But so we still have those little bit of scratches on the left, but as you can see, yeah, you got that little tiny guy there. But as a whole, you know, from what it looked like before, and I'll throw in some before footage now. I don't know if you can see right above my finger there's a bit of a dull spot now, and I actually burned through the top of the paint with the wet sandpaper. So again, it was a risk that I knew that I was taking, because I knew that paint was so thin. And you know, had this been a customer's car, I don't think that I would have risked doing what I did there. If I did, I may have just sanded it by hand. That way I could have been a little more gentle on that edge. But I will say, all in all, that is a major improvement over the way it was before. So as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you next time.